Okay, so today's topic is the implementing interactive elements into online courses. You know that I am Tom Pantazes, an instructional designer with the Westchester University Office of Distance Education. So today we're going to spend a few minutes talking about value of these interactive elements and what they can bring to a distance education course. We're going to spend a lot of time looking at the three different types and kind of exploring some of their capabilities. And we're going to end kind of going over how you can create an interactive object uh, in collaboration with our office. So to
Looks
get
like we have
started,
another attender
yep,
there.
Angela has joined us. Welcome, Angela. I turned on microphones, so if you want to, if you have a question, feel free to just ask. So when I was putting this presentation together, I started with what is a definition of interactivity, and was doing some research as to what is out there about interactivity. And a certain individual named Brent Muirhead defined interactivity as communication, participation, and feedback. So I thought that was a pretty good uh, combination of what goes into an interactive element. As I was searching the scholarly research, I also consistently came across a definition that had three basic parts to it. And the first is that there's interaction between learners and people in online courses, so classmates, professors, advisors, etc. That there's interaction between the learner and themselves, things like metacognition and those conversations that we like to have in our heads. Um, that's another form of interaction that occurs. And then the one we're going to focus more time on today is that there's interaction between the student and the content of the course, the readings, the videos, the user interface, desire to learn, all those different components. So I do, as always, have a poll question for you. So let me get that out. Um, so how would you describe, just briefly, your student to content interactions in courses that you have? And they can be online courses, they can be face-to-face courses. How do students interact with content? Um, so go ahead and type your answer and submit that. Waiting patiently. Doesn't need to be too long. Just as an example, in this webinar, you are primarily listening and watching as you interact with this content. There might be a little communication via text or chat. Okay, I see one. Read and reflect, read and write, large and small group discussions, hands-on activities, applying. That's all. Those are all good interactive elements. Um, different ways that students can interact with content. I'll broadcast that. And I'll slide that over here for now. All right, so let's take a few minutes to look at some of the value that interactive elements can bring to a course. And we'll start with some student choice. Now, online courses, students already have a lot of control over their path and pace, but interactive elements just bring that much more control for students over the way in which they choose to engage with the material and the speed at which they engage with material. Um, and you'll see as we get into some of these content objects, they even have choice as they're learning about a particular aspect, which part of that aspect or content they want to learn about. So that's one of the values that these elements can bring to your course. Another is that they can kind of improve the feedback loop. Students can get immediate feedback on learning. So there are tools that we have now where you can present some content to them, give them a chance to practice it or get an immediate quick formative assessment on it, and then that feedback all within one piece of content in your online course. So you can really improve that cycle. And you can even set them up so that it provides additional support if they don't answer particular questions well or correctly, or if they're demonstrating they need some more information. Another value is that these elements are very good at bringing in universal design and learning principles. They almost always have some combination of text, visuals, and audio built into them, and you'll get a chance to see some of that in a few minutes. So just by their very nature, they're doing a good job of providing a variety of presentation of material and content, plus opportunities, some different ways for students to demonstrate what they've learned. You can also incorporate some support strategies in these elements. For example, you can incorporate some note-taking aspects into them, or you can embed those questions directly into them. Kind of those things that we want students to do as they're engaging with material. These tools give you a way to bring some of that in and incorporate some of that. They do work pretty well across multiple platforms. They're built using what's called HTML5, which is the newest HTML language, and the way it works in kind of layman's terms is it looks at the device that you're using and then figures out the best way to present that information so that it works on the device that students are interacting with. So computers, laptops, desktops, it works pretty well. If you notice though, in the upper left I have a picture of text, and I will say these interactives don't print very well, so I don't always say that they're great from the text standpoint that way, but it's our standard practice to provide a PDF version of the interactive, kind of pictures of all the information along with them in case a student really wants to lose out on some of that interactivity and that clicking and just read through the information that was provided. So we do kind of address all the different platforms there. So that was just a brief overview of some of the value, and now we're going to take a lot of time here today and just look at these different types that are out there. These are probably the least exciting of the three, but kind of the most necessary, I guess. Then we also have assessment types, and I see these being used best as formative assessments, a chance for students to kind of test that they understand what it is they've been asked to learn about. And then the most powerful is combinations, where you can take a content element and an assessment element and maybe some video or visuals and pull it all together into one interactive element that students can engage and learn from. So we're going to start with content, and we're going to go ahead and take a look at some different options. You'll see here on the slide there are 20 kind of templates that we build from. So if there's a particular template on that list that you're interested in seeing, just type that number into the chat or speak it so that I can hear it, and I'll make sure that we see that. Now I'm going to switch us over to a share screen. So you should see the website for the product that we use now. This is Articulate. And when you're looking at their Engage product, they have examples of all those different templates that you can actually click on and kind of see how they work. So let me pull the chat up. I don't see anybody with any particular numbers. So let me go to one that I like. Just down here. They have a media tour. So we can customize most aspects of this, including background color, any of the titles or captions, the pictures, the visuals. So when I hit next, you can see how students, this one really is just some kind of PowerPoint visual aspects, but I believe this one has a video embedded in it later. Well, maybe not. But you don't have to stick to just pictures. We can put a combination of video and audio elements in or together. So that one's really just a slideshow. That wasn't quite as exciting as I thought it was going to be. Let's try this one over here, media panel. That one didn't have it either, but that's okay. Still no numbers. So here's another example, kind of a pyramid style where students can click around, and we can actually make um, any image clickable. Not quite like this. I can show you one, but if there's a particular image about related to the content, um, we can set it up so that students click around in it to access information. Let me see if there's, that one would be an example of something like this labeled panel here. So any image on the background, and then we can put in elements that can also incorporate visuals and text, where you can explain parts of an ear or work out different parts of an argument for English. There's a lot of different examples I could probably think of. So lots of different styles. There's a timeline one down here. But like I said, these are probably the least exciting of the ones that are out there. They work better in combination with some of the other elements I'm going to show you. Does anyone have any that they're interested in seeing, or can I keep moving here? I'll be sure to share this link with you when we're done later today, so that you have a chance to kind of click around and see what's out there. All right, keep moving. Sounds good. I can do that. All right, so we should be returning to our presentation here. Let me hide this for a second. All right, so we took a look at some examples. All right, so assessment objects. Um, what you're looking at on the screen is the list of all the different types of questions that we can develop in these assessment objects. Some of the standard ones that you can also get from D2L, but if you get further down the list, you'll see there's things like hotspot, where students have to physically click on a picture what the correct element is. So that could work really well with maps or identifying certain aspects of writing, or uh, what else? What else is out there? Where is this on the body? Or really anything with a visual where you want them to point out some aspect. There's also drag and drop type elements where they can drag and drop and move image pieces around to build certain structures if necessary. So there's a lot more interaction with that assessment piece that can go on with these types of tools. I built a sample, which we're going to take a look at. So let me get back out to our sharing so you can see that. I can't convey this today because the audio doesn't always convey very cleanly, but you can have these questions be read aloud if you want. So true or false, you have to work with an instructional designer from our office to build these interactive learning objects. That is actually a true statement. You can see here that I get some feedback, and that can be customized as well. There was actually audio that was playing with that as well. And I'll give you a link to this so that you can explore it later, so you can get a feel for what the full effect. So in this particular case, you have to actually select the pictures that are correct. So the instructional designers here would be these three. But I want to show you what happens when you select incorrectly. In this particular case, we've set it up so that you just have to keep going until you get it right. You can have it set up so that it doesn't work that way. So now that I have it correct, hey, I got it right. Here's an example of our pretty normal multiple choice. I'm trying to remember what my answer is on this one. I think it's that one. Hey, I got it right. Now, if you notice in this one, there was a visual that appeared with the correct answer. We can also do the same thing with incorrect answers. So you can have an explanation visual appear if you need to, or additional information. This is an example of the multiple select. And I believe they're all correct except for that one. Hey, we can do short answer, and with these, yes, Shannon, we can put our own graphs and pictures in too. It's fully customizable. It's like a PowerPoint base slide, so I can put in whatever I want into it and make that fairly interactive. So with this one, it will do short answer as long as you tell it what the correct answer is. So I already pre-programmed Quizmaker, and hey, I got it right. So this is an example of a drag and drop where there's options available and you can drag, and we can customize these particularly in the sense of what the drag and drop looks like. Um, so I didn't get that right. It gave me the answer, but it didn't give me a chance to do it again because I hadn't set that setting that way. This is another example of that drag and dropped aspect where you can drag to a target. I didn't, rather than, so I'm saying drag it onto this, so we can do different organizing aspects this way. This is an example of kind of that pairing up, matching, I guess that's the right term. Another style here where there's drop-down menus that they have to select from. I'm probably going to get this wrong, but that's okay. Yep. Here's another ordering. So if you have a step sequence, you can actually physically have them order them in the correct order. So this would be the order of how to what we do to put everything together for creating an interactive object, and I'll go over that in a few minutes. This is another example of kind of drop-down ordering. You can see I've embedded a video, just a short little clip there. So you can have video elements built into these as well. I think the answer is 3. Hey, I got it right. Here's an example of that hotspot. So here's a map of Westchester, and it's asking you to select where the Office of Distance Education is located. So you can click anywhere on here. If I click there, I'm going to get it right. I'll click Sykes to get it wrong. Oh, I didn't get it right. It was Wayne Hall. And I could have included feedback that showed them exactly where it was. And then you can also do some Likert scale type questions as well if you wanted to collect some data. Results are customizable. You can show them yes or no. And there is a way to get like an overall score to feed directly into desire to learn. Although it's not as good about specific questions, and I'm still kind of getting comfortable with how that works. But I clicked on review, and you can see you can go through all the questions to see how you did. Students can do this to find out what the correct answers were or how to best to do it. So a real opportunity to kind of learn from those experiences. You can see the hotspot there, the target that I prepared. All right. So let's stop sharing. Yes, these can be embedded directly into D2L, and I'll show you that in just a second. So let's talk about combination objects for a second, and then as I'm doing this, you'll kind of see how we can embed them into D2L. Angela, that's a good question. The results side of it, the ones that I've kind of played with, I've only asked it to tell me what their score was, whether they passed or failed, and I controlled what the pass-fail was in the interactive that I created, and it just spit out that they passed or failed. But it does go right into the gradebook, and I think I can get it to give like an overall score. I just know that it's been more challenging to get it to give me the individual data on each question. So you can definitely get something that says they got an 80% or they passed. So that's why I've stressed these more formatively than summatively, just because it's not as important for you to get formative data. It's more meant for students to practice and then demonstrate their true understanding in the summative assessments. But I would be happy to explore that further with you if you're interested in using these. So combination objects take, I'm not sure about that. Angela. We would have to explore that further if there's individual ways to see the individual questions. The combination objects, you can take a content piece and an assessment piece and put them together with video or other PowerPoint elements, audio, to make kind of this really robust, what I like to say is like a wow element for students. So I do have two examples that I want to show you. So again, let me pull the share up. I will say that these are not what I would call the best examples. I think there's still room for some really awesome, really powerful examples, but they do give you a sense of how these work. So this was a ethics case that I prepared for one of the marketing instructors. And so it starts out by kind of presenting some information about the case study that they're in, and it's actually reading off the text. So we can put in some really nice visuals if we need to. You can embed video, like this is actually a video that's going on here. And then it gets to this point where the student has to start responding. And so the student is actually interacting at this point with what's going on. Now, the responses in this particular case weren't set up to do anything. It's a very static process. But it's trying to get the student to feel like they're having this conversation with this guy. And it's an ethics case, so it's about bribery. And I'm not typing real awesome questions. So it gets to the actual question, and this is the only thing that we measured in this case, is did the students respond correctly to the bribe request or not? And so that data spit back to the professor, who could then use that to tailor his instruction on his next component. And then it asks students to explain what was going on, and they can submit and they would be finished. So that's kind of one example. And then here's another example, and this gets to the question that you expressed about, can you embed them directly into Desire to Learn? So I'm in Desire to Learn right now in our orientation for distance education students, and this right here is a content interactive that we embedded directly into the page. Just a different way to present information rather than the static straight through. Nothing too special. You will see down here that we put a PDF of the interactive in, and to give you a sense of what that looks like, it's just visuals with each step with the text included, so that a student who might have trouble with this could still interact with the material. But there's another way that we can do it, which down here, which is through a launcher, which is just like a button that they click, and it opens up the particular interactive. So this one is mostly just a PowerPoint with some audio narration, except I embedded a video here, and then at the end we embedded one of the content elements so that they could interact with that content in a different way. So that's kind of two different ways in which you can approach the combo objects, and I think there's a lot of room for growth here, particularly to do content practice, kind of some combinations in that sense. So let me return to our slides. All right, so in the chat or over your speaker, if you could just take a moment and share where you might think you could use something like this in your own particular course. Think about a blended or a distance education course that you teach or that you might want to teach. Are there objectives or content that could benefit from this sort of enhanced interactivity and presentation of the material? For example, that marketing element is used across a couple different marketing courses. So building that supplemental in-class work for interviewing techniques, that's great. Snow days, yes, we could build something like that, although I will say it takes a few days to put these together. So you really want to think about content where students may have struggled in the past. Case scenarios are great. If you have some particular case scenarios, we can build some really nice ways to do that. So I would just encourage you to think about where these might fit. And if you are interested in these, when I send out the links, analyzing video, that's excellent, actually, Angela. That's excellent. I hadn't even thought about that one. I would encourage you to uh, keep these in the back of your mind as you think about classes and ways that you might be able to incorporate these. And even if you didn't see something today that really fits, but there is some interactivity that you want to bring or enhance in your courses, come talk to us. We may have other tools or other ways that we can help you kind of increase or enhance that. So that leads into the last portion of today, and that's just how do you go about getting one of these made or created? And step one on the screen is to contact us. Contact the Office of Distance Education so that we can set up a meeting to kind of go over what needs to happen. Our contact information is there. Both of you are, I'm sure, very familiar with that. What we'll do in that meeting is we'll sit down and we'll actually storyboard out what you want to occur, what pieces of content or questions, how you want students to be interacting with it. Do you want it set up where it can branch, where if a student gets answers a certain way, it takes them one way, and if they answer a different way, it takes them another way. And we'll kind of lay out the plan together, make sure that what you want to do fits with what we can do. After that, it's gathering materials. And while the instructional designers are good at gathering things like images and putting together some video and audio for you, the real content, the real meat of these has to come from you. You are the content expert. So there will be some work for you involved in getting us the questions or getting us the readings or helping us prepare those videos or find those videos or incorporate those videos. So you'll certainly have a role to play with gathering materials. Then the instructional designer will build it all for you. We'll pull it all together. We'll get it into the course the way that you want. We'll do some testing to make sure it's working, but then we'll send it back to you and say, please review this. Make sure it does what you want it to do. Is it working properly for you? We will have done some testing, but we want to make sure it's working the way that you want it to work. And then you're going to use it with students and kind of see how it goes, see how it works, and then we would, especially early on here, love to debrief how it went and what might need to be improved or made better for your next iteration of the course or your next use of that interactive. So, oh, bummer. I had the list here and I'm not sure why it's not displaying, but I want to take this opportunity to say too that I'm really interested in looking for some opportunities to set up some experimentation with this type of content presentation and interactivity. Maybe some experiments where we give some students more static versions of the material and some students the interactive version and see if it makes any kind of difference. So I'm looking for some partners. So if you're interested in anything like that, you just let me know and I would be more than willing to do a lot of the work for that in order to get some of that information. Particularly because I have not found a lot in the scholarly research specifically focused on this kind of thing, and I'd like to see whether it actually makes a difference or not. So that is in about 30 minutes the sum of what interactive elements are and kind of some of their capabilities. Here is the list of our upcoming webinars for the rest of this semester. I have next week's as well, so you'll see me again, and then Mark will be doing video captions. I'm doing assessments, Mark's doing Examity, and then Lindsay will end our fall series with a session on kind of some tips and tricks for snow day prep and using what's out there to prepare for those kinds of events. So if there's any questions at this point, your microphones are still on, or at least I've activated them. You might need to unmute them if you want to ask me anything. You can also ask in the chat section, but I appreciate very much both of you taking some time today to listen to me talk and share about these tools, and I would encourage you to tell your colleagues about our webinar series, but also about these interactive elements and that capability exists. We really want to start getting the word out and see if we can build some and see what it can do for our students here at Westchester. So thank you. Appreciate your time. Seeing no questions, I hope you both have a great rest of your day. And if you're interested in doing some research around these, I'd be happy to hear from you.